والهجرة الانتقال من بلد الشرك إلى بلد الإسلام. والهجرة فريضة على هذه الأمة من بلد الشرك إلى بلد الإسلام، وهي باقية إلى أن تقوم الساعة. والدليل قوله تعالى: إن الذين توفاهم الملائكة ظالمي أنفسهم قالوا فيم كنتم قالوا كنا مستضعفين في الأرض قالوا ألم تكن أرض الله واسعة فتهاجروا فيها فأولئك مأواهم جهنم وساءت مصيرا. إلا المستضعفين من الرجال والنساء والولدان لا يستطيعون حيلة ولا يهتدون سبيلا، فأولئك عسى الله أن يعفو عنهم وكان الله عفوا غفورا.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to another video, and this will be part 2 of Hijrah Stories Yemen series. I said that I would try to make videos for each country that I've been to and the experiences that I've had. So I'll make a few videos about Yemen, things that I've experienced and learned, and reflections. So, as I mentioned before, we stayed with Sheikh Mohammed ibn Abdul Wahab al-Sabi's family. He was a good friend, a close friend of Sheikh Mukbil, rahimahumullah. And we stayed with them for 2 weeks, and then it was myself and my children and the wife of the brother who was also with us. We all came together from Egypt, and once the men stayed in the masjid, and once they found us a place which was down the street from the sheikh, it was we left. It was actually, it was an old villa. I mean, it was old. I think it may have been like abandoned, I believe so. No, it was. I'm not even gonna say I think. And those of you who have been married to someone who was seeking Talib, or you yourself was on that journey, some of us have lived in some rough places. But that was the first and the last time I've ever lived in something rough. So anyways, we moved into this villa. It was about 3 or 4 bedrooms. When we moved in there, Allah Mustaan, culture shock. So I want to tell you something funny. When we got to Yemen, I think I saw these toilets in Egypt too, but the squat toilets, the floor toilets, Ardia, I looked at them like they were crazy. I'm like, oh, what is that? Never will use it, inshallah. So I avoided those every chance I got, because I had never seen anything like that and didn't know what to do with it. So even when we got to Yemen, same thing. The hotels, the stops on the road, they had these toilets, and I would avoid them. The sheikh's house had normal toilet, the kursi, and then they had the ardi, and I would never use the ardi. I was like, oh, alhamdulillah, they have a regular toilet. But then when we moved into this villa, all was in there was the ardi, and I said, all right, can't avoid it. I can't avoid it. I've been running, but I gotta face this thing. And it wasn't that bad. It wasn't that bad. So, living in this house, we started to get adjusted, and then we were it was a lot of culture shock because the men used to bring home of course like vegetables and things like that, and because Hudaydah is like a town, it's a city, but it's very, very conservative and traditional, and everything is fresh and organic like most foods overseas are. So when they would bring home vegetables like potatoes and carrots, even the rice and the beans, the carrots and the potatoes were straight out of the ground, covered in dirt. I mean thick soil, not like dusty, you just gotta wash it. No, you have to like chisel the dirt, the soil off of the potatoes and the carrots, put it in the sink and chisel. Oftentimes the squash or anything like that would have little worms in them. I mean, everything was organic. So of course I'm a city girl, never had seen anything like that. Even the rice, it had bugs in it. You had to wash that out. You had the beans, bugs that naturally come along with the beans, I believe. So that was something. But I'm like, okay, well, everyone here does it. So I didn't feel too bad about that. I was washing clothes out by hand, you know, because I was already prepped for the struggle actually before I came. And this place was actually lighter, you know, in impact than what I had expected. My ex-husband was trying to take us to Damaj, and you know, I've seen pictures of mud houses and things like that are very, very short in structure. You know, he was prepping me about the scorpions that sometimes may come in the house that are, but they like roaches, so you don't have to worry about them too much. You know, they're not poisonous. So all of these things were in my mind. He had us making wudu out of a cup, as he said, the water is scarce, and I don't know if all of that stuff is true, but you know, that's what he was prepping us for before we went. I say us because before I left I had a co-wife, but then that didn't work out, so it was only me. Yeah, she was a second wife, but anyways, so once we got there and I actually had running water, I could take a shower, I didn't have to make blue out of a cup. It was okay. I was like, okay, all right, it's not as bad as I thought it was going to be. So anyways, but we came up, you know, it's temporary. You read all of the narrations about the Salaf, the A'imma of the past, and how they, you know, sacrificed for knowledge, and they would only, and this is me, like I would read these things, you know, it wasn't like, I was told these things. No, this is what I would read about seeking knowledge. They would only eat just enough to take away the hunger because they didn't want to be taken away from their studies and the reward in seeking knowledge in the path of Allah. So I was okay. I was okay with it. I didn't like where I was living. I'm not gonna lie. I was not used to anything like that. But I dealt with it because I didn't believe it was going to be permanent. But unfortunately, you know, okay, I'm not going to get into it, but it could have been permanent. But the Yemeni women who used to visit me were complaining about the place and asking, you know, why are you living here? This is not good. And their houses weren't the best looking, but they were like, no, this is not good. So anyways, we stayed in that place with the other family for a couple of months, and then but as I said, I was washing clothes out by hand in a basin. That was interesting, but I was actually doing that. My grandmother actually bought me a washboard because I told her, okay, I'm going to go overseas, and you know, we're going to go to the mountains somewhere. And she bought me a washboard. Like, you know, she said this is what they used to use back in the day, the older women. She bought me a washboard from a thrift store, and I was practicing. I was practicing at home. So I was mentally prepared for a little struggle to study. So what else? Okay, so one of the first things that I learned how to do was count. The men usually, they weren't home with us a lot. They would go to the masjid after Fajr. They would go to Fajr, maybe come home for a brief second, but usually they would stay all day until like Isha. So now I'm thinking about it. I don't even think were we cooking for them? I don't even remember. I remember the sister and I just trying to eat, make things for ourselves, but I think they must have been eating out. Yeah. Yep. I don't even remember those men eating in the house. So we were cooking for ourselves. Yeah. They would stay from Fajr to Isha and then come home and have all sorts of stories of where they went and things like that. But anyways, in the house, and I needed to learn how to count. So what we would do, me and the sister, we wanted Oreos, we wanted Coca-Cola, we wanted ice cream, we wanted, little treats. We would go to the outside yard area, which had tall walls. Any of you who live overseas, in the Arabian Peninsula, like Yemen and the Khalij, the Gulf area, the houses, they have tall walls in the villas. So no one can see the women folk. So we would go onto the house, and knock on the steel door until someone on the street heard us, and they would be like, "Naam." The kids would be like, "Naam, you need something? What's going on?" So we were like, with our broken Arabic, please, we want, here, take this money. We need eggs. We need cookies. Give me cookies and give me Coca-Cola and blah, blah, blah. Because also another thing, we were told that the women don't really go out like that. And if they do go out, they go out in groups. And it's aid for the women to walk around by themselves. So, we were trying to get the kids and run them to the store for us on the street. So they would take the money from us, go get what we needed, and bring us our change. MashaAllah. So, they were good kids. They didn't try to rip us off. They didn't even see us. They just took the money. They saw our hands and they took the money and came back with what we asked for. So, what else? Okay, so that was going on. Okay, yeah. And I was learning the currency, how to practice saying the amount, how much things are, cam this and cam that, and, what's my change, how much I owe you, how much you owe me, stuff like that. But then we got tired of being in the house. So I started to go out to the Sheikh's house almost every day, just to go mix with them and sit with them. And Sheikh had a lot of children, rahimahullah, and older children and younger children. So I would go and I would listen to them speak, and they would ask me little questions. They know I didn't really know how to speak, but I would talk, little words here and there, but mainly they would ask me questions, which I used to retain. It was being downloaded in my brain. And I would just go and sit with them and visit with them, things like that. So, and of course eat with them. And another thing too, which was amazing, they fed us for 2 weeks. The men didn't give them anything, but they fed us, and that was just subhanAllah, that was amazing. You let strangers in your house for 2 weeks, and you feed them with no problem, from what you had. It was way past 3 days of our rights. So, may Allah reward the Sheikh's family for doing that. And like I said, he wasn't there, but they took us in, and that was tremendous. That left an imprint on me. So, learn how to count. started going out, mixing, and I was being invited to the neighbors' homes, the ladies in the neighborhood. I would go in the masjid, and I was getting to know the sisters in the masjid and things like that. And they were, of course, they ask you a lot of questions. They want to get to know you. They ask you a lot of questions about where you're from, what does your mother do, what does your father do, what does your grandmother do. Anybody you tell them about, they're like, okay, well, your immediate family anyways. Okay, what kind of work do they do? So what they're doing is this, and I know a lot of Westerners who went to Yemen or even Jordan, those people that group who went to Jordan to go study, when the Muslims ask you a lot of questions, they don't know you. They don't know who they're dealing with. They don't know where you came from. They don't know anything about you. So they're trying to understand who they're talking to. They tell you what's going on with them with no problem. Oh yes, my brother is he's a chief. My son is a dentist. My son is a doctor. My son they tell you with no problem. But you know where we come from, someone priding in your business is extremely, off-putting. And you think that they want something from you or they're trying to do something to you. But me being young, alhamdulillah, I wasn't thinking like that. I was like telling them everything. I hadn't been used and abused in the streets, or hadn't lived life really in the mainstream to be really cautious of people asking me questions. So I didn't have suspicions about them. Like, why are you asking me what? Why are you asking me about my business? No. I just was like, okay, it's innocent. And it was, and it is. That's an innocent exchange. But a lot of Westerners, they don't get that because of where we're coming from. But anyways, so they need to know who you are. That's why they're asking you those questions. And to get offended and get hostile with them, I think is ridiculous. You have to look at it from their point of view. You're coming from a foreign land. They know absolutely nothing about you. And, they're asking you questions. That's the only way they're going to get to know you. They don't do surface stuff like Westerners do. Okay, well, yeah, real surface. No, they want to know what's going on with you. They kept asking us were we Muslim. That was hilarious. They couldn't believe it. You're American. You're Muslim. SubhanAllah. Oh, yes. And 9/11 happened while we were there. I found out about 9/11 while I was in Yemen, which is interesting. We didn't even know that it happened until like months later, actually. But anyways, they were curious to know, are you a Muslim? Wait a minute. You're from America and you're Muslim? Is your mother Muslim? Is your father Muslim? They wanted to know. They asked a lot of questions. And I was happy to tell them. It was interesting. It was funny. But, so that taught me a lot also about the innocence. Now, mind you, you do have crooks, but it's not in abundance. For the most part, they're generous. The people in Hudaydah anyway. And come to find out later, I found out that the people in Hudaydah are from the best people of Yemen. These are from the other Yemenis that, my husband, he always tells people, oh yeah, my wife was in Yemen. My wife was in Yemen. They're like, oh really, well, where was she? And he said, Hudaydah. They're like, Hudaydah. SubhanAllah, they from the best of the people. So that's why I experienced what I experienced, and I'm so grateful for it. I saw tremendous religiosity from the women, as I mentioned in the previous video. I was just so impressed and in awe when you see people who have something over you, something to aspire to be. It leaves an impression on you. For those whom Allah has mercy on, of course. Not everyone feels that way. Not everyone gets inspired by that. But I come from a background of going to Catholic school. I had some religion, growing up. So I was searching anyway. So religiosity appealed to me a lot. Not everyone has that. Some people come from backgrounds of You know, I don't even have to say. We all know. Some people coming from no cultivation, no religious adherence at all. So the concepts of being religious, you know, it may seem fairy tale-ish to them. You know, but yeah, someone like me, I was very fascinated and awe-inspired, and it made me want to strive more. Looking at those women, how they treated me, looking at them worship, looking at the sunnah. Oh, subhanAllah, I remember being in the Sheikh's house. I was just visiting. I think it was it? I can't remember when it was. And it wasn't during Ramadan, no. I was trying to stay over there, and by that time the Sheikh was back, and his second wife had told him, Ruqayya, she wants to spend the night. She wants to stay over. He said, no, tell Ruqayya to stay in her home and worship Allah, read the Quran, because he knows how the women get. And like, you want to come over here, and y'all going to be chatting it up all night. Sheikh, mashallah, rahimahullah, he told me, no, stay home. But I was over there outside of Ramadan. I spent the night, and I remember the Sheikh's mother knocking on the door. We were up talking, me and his second wife, in her place, and I heard a knock at the door. It was around 2:30 in the morning. So I was like, who's that? And she said, oh, that's the Sheikh's mom. Waking her up for tahajjud. But she was already, we were up talking. But I was like, subhanAllah, that's only things that you read and, you read about. You read about things like that. And I just feel like crying, because all of the things I used to read, I used to love reading hadith as a teenager. And the things that I witnessed was, it brought everything full circle for what I was reading. You don't find the things that you read. You don't find people doing the things that you read, like in the hadith. When you come to the Muslim lands and in a religious environment, a religious town, you experience that. And not everybody gets that experience, and I know that they don't. And I'm grateful that I was able to witness it and experience it and recognize what it was. Because sometimes some people do experience it, but they don't know what they're looking at, due to the fact maybe they weren't well read. They weren't really connected to the narrations. But I benefited from that, and like I said, it just made me want to strive more. Seeing those things in action, it amazed me. And I'm like, okay, this is amazing. Also seeing shepherds in the street. These are reflections now. Shepherds in the street with a trail of goats or sheep. Of course, that's something that you just can't see. Maybe, I don't know if I think that exists maybe in the United States. I'm not sure. Like, on the farms and stuff, I'm not sure. But I've never witnessed that before. And any narrations you read about a shepherd and his flock, or narrations about, what is najasa that you step in and things like that. You have experiences where you might step in goat or sheep droppings, but it's not najasa, it's not impurities. So these are things that you get to implement, that only if you only read about it, it doesn't affect you, because you're far detached. When you're living in the West, you're far detached from these things. So it's just fairy tale-ish. You don't really get to actualize anything. It doesn't have an impact on you. So many things we read, we don't get a chance to experience, because these type of things don't exist where we are from. So it's harmful for us, and we're lacking religiously, due to not being in an Islamic environment and able to actually recognize and connect with the text that we read. So like I said, I'm glad I was able to experience that at a young age. It was beautiful. It stuck with me. And I just also want to mention that both of my marriages. I don't want to say only, but one of my prerequisites for marriage was that I wanted to go overseas. And alhamdulillah, from that first situation, I got all that I could get out of that. And there are more stories to come, trauma included, trauma and drama, but meaning it relates to Yemen. But you know, that's it for today. And I hope you you enjoyed the story and the commentary and things like that. And I would like to know what you all think. And please, those of you who have your own experiences, write your little short stories in the comment section. Anything that you learned, things that you reflected on. It helps. It helps those who haven't had that experience. There's some people who their only experience overseas has been through work. They weren't on the Talib M journey. That's a whole nother experience. They've never been on that. So if you can share, you know, trauma aside, because a lot of us have experienced trauma overseas, please share any benefits that you got, you know, with changes within yourself, things that you learned. You know, I learned a lot of self-discipline and humbleness and humility and gratefulness, especially from that experience. Okay, so please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And I'll see you all in the next video. Assalamu.